Hello, this is going to be the 10th in the Histrivia series. This is actually a really interesting topic. If you're like a really big Civil War buff, you might know about this, but most people wouldn't know about this. I didn't really learn about this till after I got like a quarterly history magazine about it. Um, this video is going to be about Stand Watie. Stand Watie was a Confederate Cherokee general. Um, and his story is actually pretty interesting. He's known as the last Confederate general to surrender during the Civil War. But a little bit on his background. In 1861, the Cherokee Nation, after the Civil War has broken out, Fort Sumter was attacked and the Confederacy forms. After the Confederacy is formed, the Cherokee Nation allies itself with the Confederate States of America. Later on in that year, in October of 1861, Watie organizes a regiment of Confederate cavalry, and he was at the same time made colonel of the 1st Cherokee Mounted Rifles. Most of these would go on raids, and they would participate in some battles. One of their battles was fought in March of 1862 at the Battle of Pea Ridge in Arkansas. The majority of the Confederate troops at the Battle of Pea Ridge were mainly Cherokee soldiers under Watie. The only white regiment, there was only one white regiment at this battle. The majority of them were mainly Cherokee Confederates fighting with Watie. Although they did not succeed, the Battle of Pea Ridge was actually a Union victory. Even though they failed, Watie was becoming well known in the Confederate States of America as a really good general. Then after that battle, he mainly does, in 1863, 64, he mainly does Confederate raids by attacking Union trains and steamboats that are carrying things such as troops, supplies for troops such as weapons, food, ammunition. He and his troops raid Union steamboats, trains, and they basically steal it and give it to Confederate regiments and armies, while at the same time, hindering the Union war effort. The most interesting thing about him, though, was that he was the last Confederate general in the war to surrender to the Union Army. You have General Lee and General Johnston. You have them surrendering by late spring of 1865. I think Lee surrenders in April to Grant, and about a month later, or maybe a few weeks later, General Joseph Johnston surrenders to Sherman. But the Seven Indian Nations under Stan continue to fight. They do not surrender until mid-June of 1865. Now, while the Seven Indian Nations that were with the Confederacy surrendered in mid-June of 1865, Watie does not surrender to Union troops until a few days later after the other nations surrender. In fact, it's June 23rd of 1865. Watie becomes the last Confederate general to surrender to Union troops. After the war, he mainly retrieves from public life. He doesn't really fight in various wars and doesn't really help out Indian efforts in the West that happened during Reconstruction. He mainly goes back to farming, After the war, between 1865 and his death in September of 1871, he mainly is a recluse and, just spends his years farming until he dies. He doesn't really, take up the cause against, white men like other Indian troops in the West have tried after the Civil War. So anyway, that's just a short video on him. Uh, I actually found it in a history magazine. There is a history magazine that I get, and it had a really neat article about him. So I thought I would do a video on him because I read the article and it sounded really interesting. I never knew about this. I've known that Cherokees have fought, with the Confederates, but I never knew that one had rose to be, you know, a well-known commander in the Confederate Army. This is the first time I've actually heard of that. So hopefully you found that interesting.